I'm Kiwi,
And I'm Jarad.
and we are the two gentlemen coming to you from somewhere over the rainbow. Jarad, how are you, mate?
I'm good. I'm good. Welcome back. It's been a few weeks, mate, hasn't it? We've had a bit of trouble locking in a date, but then you got sick. So how are you feeling?
I'm feeling a lot better now, pretty much 100%. I've had basically three colds before winter even started.
Oh no. Hopefully
Yeah,
they're out of. Is that the thing where they get out of the way? It's like the chicken pox, or is it
yeah, I hope so. I hope I'm done now.
or not?
Yeah,
Yeah. No, that's no good, mate. Hopefully that's the end of it for you.
definitely. Let's hope so.
Yeah. No, I've been okay. Just adjusting to the new weather as it kicks into that changeover period. I think it's a bit of a shock to everybody. Uh, the aircon at home gets changed to heater, and um, you know the clothing, more hoodies are floating around, and the mornings are a little colder, a lot colder.
Yeah, look, I've lost my favorite hoodie, Jarad. I'm very sad.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I found it in the garbage, so, it's one of those things, easy come, easy go, but still, it was
It's
really nice.
returned back to it's a circle of the garbage hoodie, I guess.
I think it was stolen by a cleaner.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I
That's
left it at
really good.
Jiu-Jitsu and there's like a lost and found kind of section. And I went in there, couldn't find it, and people had seen it because I mentioned it to the instructors. They're like, "Oh yeah, I think I saw that. It was a grey one, right?" I was like, "Yeah, that one." No,
So it was definitely lost and it was definitely found, but there was a taken as well after that.
yeah,
So
exactly. I'm pretty sure what that film Taken, that's what it was about. The guy losing his jumper.
little lost hoodie.
Yeah, and then he vowed to find it. I
Well,
don't have as
that's
many skills.
yeah. Wow, that's I realised I'm sitting outside at the moment and it's early in the morning and I realised I threw out my slippers last year, so I've got my best trainers on as I'm out here recording the podcast. I wish they were slippers though. I
And it's
really do.
freezing outside. That's one of those decisions that will come back to haunt you, Jared. You look back on that year
Decisions.
ago and you're like, I could have, all I had to do is just think, I might need these one day to record a podcast. But no, you didn't.
Funny you should mention that, mate. Great segue. We wanted to talk about what I wanted to talk to you about was it's something that we all do, and our life. We're in our 40s, and we've made a lot of big decisions in our life, and the big ones are what sort of career we're going to follow, and whether we're going to go to university, how hard we're going to study, all this sort of stuff. Big life decisions, but what I wanted to talk to you about were those little ones, the ones that didn't really have much of a, you didn't really give it much of a thought at the time, but when you look back, it's sliding doors moment, it's very
Hmm.
much, wow, I'm glad I went to that party where I, met my future wife and, I could have just easily skipped it, right? And then, you know, that's a good thing, that happened out of it. There's also the ones where, you might, I don't know, sell that car that now is worth a lot of money and think, oh, I just gave that thing away. And, hindsight and time is always something that, you wish you could sort of, turn back time a little bit and have those decisions back. But, how do you manage those ones where at the time it was just a split second decision. And how do you manage the, I guess regret or relief that you did that? It's quite interesting.
Jared, there are whole love stories written about regret and how
Mm,
people didn't manage it. It's
mm.
it's so hard. I've been kept up at night thinking, why did I zig when I should have zagged?
Yep.
I think we've all done it. I think of the wise words of Wayne Bennett, who said, regret is like a rocking chair, it gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. And I try to remind myself of that because, our whole podcast basically started because you were like, what the hell happened to Kiwi's life? That was going to be the title of
Yeah.
the show. Kiwi, what the hell have you done with your life? You're a bum.
I regret not putting that in our title. Yeah. No.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Yeah.
pretty much the unofficial title. How did this happen? Um,
That one.
Look, you get one
Uh,
life, as far as I know, and if you believe you get more, well, I'd love to see more evidence of that. That'd be great. I'd love to know I've
mm,
got another crack one day on another planet or something. Who knows? But as far as we know, in our conventional culture, we have one go at this and it goes in a straight line from birth to death. So this is a position we're all in. We get one shot at a lot of things. When we're young, obviously we can do it again and again and again and again, and you do it again and again in practice for whatever it is. But in the moment, we get one shot. And I
Yeah,
guess that's the beauty of it, but it's also the torture of it all.
that is. That is. And, I guess that one shot and that one, I'll sound like an Eminem song, that one shot, that one opportunity. But like, honestly, like, yeah, it, it sort of shows them like the result from that one opportunity and that one shot, you're still going to be striving after that. So, that might have been the starting point of something good or something not so good. But, there's stations along that train tracks where you can sort of try and divert after that decision, if that makes sense. So if you make a decision and something isn't great, and we've all done it, and we've all had this, oh wow, that wasn't right, or I should have done that better. And then there's an adjustment you can make at some point. And I think if for me, if I sit in that regret, and as you said with Wayne Bennett sort of saying of just rocking in that chair, I'm not going to get anywhere with it. You've got to take that regret as a lesson learned in the way that I do things, and then I try and change that line a little bit if I need to, that direction of that line. It's still going to go where it needs to go, but you have that ability to sort of turn it a little bit. So I guess don't dwell on that decision that essentially you didn't know was such a big decision at the time.
Yeah, and when I say that you get one shot, I don't mean one shot at life. I mean one shot at that thing. That's all.
That's
For
right.
example,
Yeah.
something that I've actually replayed in my head is the Wimbledon 2019 final with Federer and Novak, right? Federer was up 40-15, serving for the match, double match point. And I still remember the camera was pretty far back and there was a woman putting a hand up in the air going like, putting one finger up. They said, one more point.
Yeah.
And he hit a really loose forehand. The very first point of that game, he lost with a open court. He smacked a forehand long to go down love 15. Now, had he won that 1 point, because he won the next three, he would have won. He would have served it out to love, and won his 21st Grand Slam title and beaten Nadal and Novak in a row, which he'd never done in a Grand Slam before, and very few have, I think. So it would have been just that one forehand to do that again. Yeah. Now, but that's only one moment. That doesn't take away the other 20 Grand Slams. That doesn't take away his family. That doesn't take away whatever he's doing right now. It's just when I say that, you get one shot, it's at that thing. So it's really important to remember that. You screwed up that date with that one girl. That's okay. You can go on another date and find another girl. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But there are some things where you can dig that hole and it becomes pretty deep. And you've made those life decisions. And you were talking about small ones. I think of it of bigger ones when you brought up this topic with me. My biggest decision is not getting into the property market. I was so hell-bent on my creative career. I really just wanted to make it as a writer. I wanted to do something epic in my life. When I break down everything that has gone through my head as an adult, or even as a young child, I just wanted to do something pretty epic. For someone that might be winning Wimbledon. For another person, it might be winning an NRL premiership. For me, it was achieving something in the arts.
Yep.
And, I set my mind at, maybe filmmaking, maybe this, maybe that. And it's boiled down to writing. I just have ideas that I like to get out there. And, I was chatting about this with Erica and I said, even if I just got a book published and like one person bought it and it was a complete flop, that would be great.
Yeah.
That would be such an epic thing to achieve just to get a book published. I'm from a non-English speaking background. To come into this Western culture and to achieve something like that would be really cool. And you could say countless people have achieved that, and sold millions of copies. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. That's their life. I'm not going to compare myself to other people. But that would be really cool for me. That's what I really want. That's what I'm in this for, this whole life thing. So my biggest regret is going so hell-bent on that. But at the end of the day, Jared, if I were on my deathbed and I didn't do that, I can guarantee you I'd be saying my biggest regret is not
He's
going
not
all
doing
out. You know, like I was going to end up here anyway on this deathbed. I was going to die. And I used to think I'm quite an extremist, as you know. Like when I was young, I was like, well, we're going to die anyway, so you may as well go out the way you want.
Yeah.
And that's what I've tried to do. So when I think about it, overall, I don't have that regret because my life has turned out great. You know, I've got
Yeah.
beautiful people in my life. I'm pretty much always happy. I'm really healthy other than the 3 colds I've had. And I've got a bit of a groin problem, but you don't need to know about that.
No, no, that's it. All good.
But other than that, I'm really happy. So should I regret anything? I don't think so. I've got it. My youngest son has lately been saying, like, quite often, I love my life. I love our family. He's 10
Yeah.
years old. He's expressing
Yeah.
this constantly. I'm
Yeah.
like, surely I've done something right then.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I think talking through it, listening to you talk, and then just this initial start up to this episode, I must say, regret. I'm changing my thought to maybe what if. Like instead of regret, it's there's a lot of what ifs. There's a lot of what if I did that? What if I did that? Like I think of like I think of a little, I think of little things like you said earlier. Like I was one just sticks in my head. I don't know why. It was years ago. I was driving through a car park, and I remember it was like a big open space car park. It wasn't one of the multi-level ones, but anyway. And I kind of just I had a little gap, so I ducked in front of a car. But I could have waited, but I could have not. You know what I mean? Like I was in that sort of thing. So, and it turns out, 50 meters down the road, a car came out and reversed into my passenger door. Didn't hurt anyone or anything. Just a little accident in a car park. But I'm like, if I waited, and took that one behind him, he would have been the one that got bumped, and it wouldn't have been my car. And I think, oh, geez, like. What if that happened? How would have that changed? That, like I said, that's just a little thing. That person in that other car might not have been insured, whereas I was. So maybe it wasn't that much of a big deal. It was just a damaged door. But it just, what kind of train of events it sort of opened for someone else if I just waited. Like, and you think of life is full of those decisions, and what you have no idea what that decision is gonna, but that's the beauty of it, like that, yeah, I'm talking about an incident where someone banged in my car, but these decisions are also good. You can make these decisions and good things happen from it, and I think that's the beauty of the world. You don't know what's coming, even though you think you do.
Yeah, exactly. It just shows you how little control you've got.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm not religious, as you know. I think the word Muslim means one who submits, and it
Yep.
means submits to the will of God.
I'm not sure, but I've heard something along those
Yeah.
lines. So,
And I
yeah,
really
don't
like
know.
that. And I can really
Yeah.
see how that would bring someone peace to just go, look, none of this is up to me.
Mm.
And I don't mean to not try. And I'm not saying that,
No.
a Muslim person wouldn't
Oh
try
no,
in
you
life.
don't just sit
That's
there
not what I'm
and you're
saying.
looking.
But just the idea that, look, there's actually a higher power behind all of this. Whether you believe that or not, it doesn't matter. But my point is, if you did feel that I actually have no control over the events or even what happens after the events, how things flow on, I think that does bring you a little bit of peace. You were just talking about how, the flow and effects of, your decision to go for that space. I've done things where there's been no flow and effect after, and I've been like, oh my goodness, like, I've just dodged something. Back to tennis, I stayed up for the US Open semi-final when Federer beat Novak in 2008. I drove home from work and I fell asleep at the wheel on the M2. So
Yeah.
our listeners from Sydney, you know what the M2 is like. This was on a Sunday afternoon and I didn't crash into anything. I woke
Wow.
up by a reflector and thought, oh my goodness. And
Yeah.
I stayed awake for the rest of the drive. But that
Yeah.
was horrifying. But literally
Yeah.
nothing happened. And
Yeah.
you know how busy the M2 can get.
Oh, mate. Yeah.
Another time in
Just
the Westfield car park at Chatswood, I let go of my trolley to open my boot, turned around, the trolley starts rolling across the car park. No cars were coming.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's always cars coming. And
Yeah.
I just got lucky. I've told this
Yeah.
story before. I almost killed my youngest son. I asked him
Yeah.
to go and wash his hands once when we were in this car park at a campsite, and he didn't
Mm.
want to. And then a four-wheel drive just comes flying by like way too fast. He would have died, but nothing happened. Another time that really haunts me still, and I actually thought about this yesterday, was my youngest son and I. He was about probably 7 at the time, and he got some rubber knives, and we were practicing knife fighting, and we were trying to slash each other, and he ducked, and I reflexively just tried to stab, and I got him in the face, but just under his eye.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my God, what have I done? I
Yeah.
didn't even,
Yeah.
we weren't even wearing safety goggles.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like
Couple of
literally nothing
millimeters.
happened. He was fine. He was like, no, no, it's okay. And I was just horrified. But there's just a few things that have come to mind where like nothing happened from my
Yeah.
terrible decisions.
That's right. That's right. And then you think about, you know, that's right. Like it's just thinking, is it just planned anyway? You know, is it just, it's not meant to happen. It's not meant to be your time. You hear that all the time, like it wasn't your time when it wasn't this or it wasn't that. And, a lot of people must believe or have that, whether they believe it or not, or it's just words they're saying, but it definitely, there is definitely a lot of it in my world that you hear about that sort of stuff. It's, makes you think a lot. Makes you think a lot. I'm probably not the best for a podcast because I'm sitting here thinking.
Yeah, I think your message earlier, Jared, was about, just that things go in a straight line, but that you can then change tracks.
Yes.
That's really important. And I think that's the key. Like, but how do you move on when you do something that's so bad or that's had such a strong repercussion, it can be challenging to move on.
Yeah.
Or the way
Yep.
you identify with yourself. And there's a sad story I heard where a guy who was touted as the next big thing in his particular sport, it
Yep.
didn't eventuate, and he ended his life.
Yep. Yep.
And I just think that's so sad on so many levels. But just that we can be told that this is who you are, this is who you're
Mm.
meant to be, and if reality doesn't match up with that image, like we can't
Yeah.
handle that. It's we're considered failures or something.
That's years of, like you said, that's years of being told this, and over and over and over again, and then the belief of, oh, that is me, I'm going to be that, and then a decision or the universe, if you want to put it that way, has different ideas, right? That reality of like not being that person that you've been told you're going to be, or that person that you truly, well, I say believe, but I think you've probably believed the hype maybe
Yep.
that people have put around you. Yeah, that's very sad. It's very sad that it can happen, and it's not uncommon, really. It's not just sport either.
Yep.
It's all the like I said, the expectations, or I guess, of people, what people put on you, and if you eat that up, I guess. You've got to be able to. I say you've got to, like, I don't mean it like, oh, you've got to do this, I'm telling you to do this, but the way that I try and do things is, you've got to change that line. So my career was heading in, like a big decision I made, and I don't know if I've said this on the podcast, but my career was leading a certain way, and I wasn't happy. I wasn't functioning, I wasn't functioning the way I wanted to function outside of work. And I just wasn't happy. So I made the decision, and it was a big decision, to stop working at that job. And I, bought a lawnmower and a whippersnipper and had a gap year, essentially. Like I still had to bring in money. I couldn't just, not. But I was able to do a job that I didn't need to use the skills that I'd kind of developed. And I was able to use another set of skills, and I really enjoyed that, and I really needed that, and it was a really good reset button. I mean, that was a big. I know we're talking about a smaller decision, but that was a big decision that I consciously made because I was heading in a direction of, I can't do this career for another X amount of years, and that reset button and that change of the tracks really really helped me personally and professionally.
And it worked out, but I'm sure at the time there were some really scary moments where you were like, what have I done?
Well, massively. And there was really big, I remember walking out of the building for the last time, I'm like, oh, this is reality's hitting. Like, this is Friday and on Monday I'm starting something new. And we talk about, that was a big decision to change the tracks. But a lot of the smaller decisions earlier was what headed me in that direction I didn't really want to go. So little things like, oh yeah, little promotions at work and little sort of, oh, I'll go sideways to this job and that'll get me to here. And, like it was a bit of managing, your career that way. And it kind of, those decisions of like, oh yeah, I'll do this job and I'll sit in that chair for 6 months and see how I go. And, all those little decisions led to me having to make a bigger decision. But yeah, scary moments for sure, and self-doubt and all that sort of stuff. But when I look back at it, the decision was right. Well, I feel like it was right because I've reset and I have a real new outlook on career and work, and I've found a job that suits me.
Having done all that, Jarad, what would your advice be to a young person now asking you if they should do the same thing? If someone came to you and said, look, I've got a mortgage, I've got a family,
Yeah.
I'm really, really unhappy. I'm 45, which we basically are now.
Yeah.
What do I do? Would you say anything other than just hearing them out?
I'd hear them out first. The first thing I would say to them, this is, forgive me because this is kind of on the spot, but I guess the first thing I would say I'd and you've sort of said it in your sort of line of questioning there, that like the first thing you need to look after is yourself, but in saying that, if you have responsibilities, you need to try and address those responsibilities within your direction change. So it's not an overnight thing. It's not something that you can go, all right, tomorrow, that's it. I'm throwing everything in and then I'll look for work or look for this, or, I'd be like, you need to sit down and you need to plan as much as you can, because this decision, this big one of you changing career and moving to a different role where you're probably going to earn less money, you need to be, prepared for that, in all aspects of your life, relationships, family life, financially, and also yourself. You need to prepare that you're going to turn up to work and it's going to be different. You have to do that every day, essentially. But I think I've given that advice, not so in depth I think I've given that to people, a couple of people in my lifetime, and, it's changed slightly, but I think that's, your starting point. You just have to be prepared. And understand that, life, you're going to, things are going to change because of this big decision.
Appreciate you keeping it real, Jarad. It's a bit too easy to go off on the, Disney side of things and just go, oh, if you believe it, you can do it. And, or you can make your dreams come true.
I don't, yeah.
Yeah, you can go out there and give anything a crack, but whether or not it's going to work out is, like we've already said, who knows who's in control of anything,
right.
if we're in control at all. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You've got to, at our age, we've got obligations to meet. If you're, especially in our position with families, my main role is to bring in money. I can't sugarcoat that in any way. It's just how it is. I've got to bring in money and keep my family fed and clothed and sheltered.
Yeah.
But if you can meet those obligations, then you can start planning. I guess it's just about that pyramid, isn't it? You've got your needs that you have to meet, and if you can just keep meeting those, then the other things you can change.
And I must say, and you mentioned it earlier, when you're younger, well, you mentioned something similar to earlier, but when you're younger, these decisions generally are only affecting you. But as we get older and we get more responsibility, these decisions have an effect on multiple people. And this is probably where the pressure comes. This is where the pressure comes. As a 20-year-old, you're not thinking like that. You're just like, you know what? I don't want to work it, and I don't want to trivialize anything, but I don't want to work at Coles. I'm gonna quit there, and I'm gonna go and find a job somewhere else. And you can, you've got, if you're lucky, you've got a support network around you, who kind of, understand that you're young and, you make these decisions. But as you get older, you're the support network for those decisions, I guess. And, you've got to be prepared. So when like I said, when you do make those decisions, and I must say, like that job that I went to, like I haven't stayed in that job, but it holds a strong, part. I have a really strong feeling towards, that wasn't my dream job. Essentially, I didn't leave for a dream job. I left for a paycheck, essentially. But I looked at the skill set that I could offer and what I could do, and then I, took that job for 12 months, and ultimately found my career path from that.
Not everything happens straight away or in the way you want it to.
No,
but baby steps.
Yep. And like you said, it's not a Disney movie, unfortunately. You've got to be prepared. You're prepared for the rubbish days and the
It's all a grind, isn't it, Jarad? We all think about the moment that we want. Like, if you want to be a rock star, you don't picture all the rehearsals, all the doubts, all the days where you can't write anything, all the band fights or anything like that. You're just picturing you on stage with an adoring crowd. That's what people think being a rock star is. People think being a professional athlete is playing sport. They don't think about the grind, the recovery, the terrible injuries, the self-doubt, the social media trolls. There's so much to get through in life.
Agree. But these decisions, I guess, my thought is, let's not get bogged down with, especially the ones where you do regret, those little ones, those little decisions that you make, and then you're like, oh, I regret that. Try and use it as a bit of a learning experience, and that's where we get our experience from, is our mistakes. So, not all, you know what I mean.
Sadly.
I think that's probably true, but we all make, no one's perfect, and we're not going to be perfect, till the day that we are not here. If you wake up and think, oh, I'm complete, I think that's the day that you probably don't survive, because look, we should be all striving, having that carrot dangled in front of us, always trying to win that next, lack of better words, battle, no matter how old we are. I think we all make these decisions and then we live with them.
Yeah, agreed. I think there's this weird obsession with the zero. So in boxing, it's your record, you're 10-0 or whatever. And there's this, in boxing in particular, there's this real obsession with keeping that zero. In MMA, it doesn't seem like a big deal. Someone's got a 17-4 record. No one calls them a bum. In boxing, people would be like, oh, no, he's nothing. He's got 4 losses. It's really, really strange. And there's a guy that I was looking at, this young cruiserweight from Great Britain, who's 1-10. Sorry, 10-1. He lost his very first fight. I think he took it at 5 weeks' notice or something, and he was 18 years old. And you put that into context, you're like, oh, well, that doesn't really count then. But quite often we don't put anything into context. We just see the stat, and we're just like, oh, that's dumb. Or that person's a bum. We write things off. And I think it's really important to put our lives into context and understand where we came from. So even when we do make these horrible decisions, and I'll give you an example. Someone I have heard of turning up to work with a vape in one hand, with their mobile phone with a gambling app open, and a cigarette in the other hand. And I just thought, that's all these vices just all at once.
I'm just going to put it all out there.
My first reaction was, poor guy.
Yeah.
So my first reaction was, poor guy. It wasn't, oh my God, what a bum or anything like that. But I tried to put it in context of what this person's life must be like for him to need that much stimulation and I guess that much escape.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to be compassionate and understand that there's a reason why people make the decisions that they make.
Yep.
or there's a reason why people can't make good decisions because we were all unconscious for some period, right? You just do what you do. Like when you get up to walk to your kitchen after we're done here, you're not going to think a
Mm.
single thing about how to step in when you get up, right? You know how to walk and you're just going to walk the way you've always walked. And I think that's the way our thoughts go as well. We just think the way we think.
Yep.
And until something happens, whether it's a big spiritual change or some sort of force comes along, we don't need to change the way we think.
Yep.
So it's whatever put his thoughts in action to make him be that sort of person. It happened a long time ago. It wasn't like he woke up this morning and had a conscious choice.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important when we do witness poor decision making or what we consider poor decision making, we really take a step back and try to put things in context and understand where things came from and how everything
Yep.
came to be in this world, in an individual's world, and be kind to yourself as well, because you made certain decisions with a certain brain, with a certain level of consciousness, which
Yep.
you now hopefully have evolved from because you've made that mistake or whatever it is, and you've grown from it. You've got more experience now. But I think it's really important to be forgiving of ourselves. When we talk about getting past regret, I think that's a really important ingredient. Just being kind to yourself because you wouldn't treat anyone else like that. If anyone else came up to you and told you they made this decision, you'd be really supportive. You wouldn't, flog them for it and
Yep.
the way we do to ourselves when we have regret. So I think it's really important to be kind to yourself and to others when it comes to decisions and where we are in life.
I think so, and you have a good point there. That we wouldn't if a friend came up to us and told us they made a decision that was a little bit questionable, we wouldn't give them a hard time about it, too much. We'd probably, depending on the situation, but essentially we'd be supportive. That would be the main thing that we would be, and I think, and I'm repeating what you said, but we need to pass that support on to ourselves and, get off that rocking chair of regret. I really like that, what you said earlier, and, it gets you nowhere, right? Just gives you something to
Exactly.
think about, something to do.
Something I learned from jiu-jitsu is there's a technical answer to everything. So you might think you need to muscle out of a situation, but there's a move quite often that can get
Mm.
you out of trouble. There's a move that can prevent trouble. You just need to have the skills to do it. It just takes you many, many years to get to that point, and you're going to make countless mistakes. But all of the times I get submitted on the mats, no one cares. There's no record. It's
Yep.
just practice. And in life, obviously, there are bigger consequences. So, but I just want everyone to realize that you can get out of any situation. You can move on. Like you hear about people who've been to jail and come out and then they've started a life. So if they can do it, surely we
Yeah.
can. There's always a way. And yeah, I guess it's just about staying positive and finding that particular technique, that simple step. If you're in mountains of debt, okay, you can consolidate debt. You can, refinance, you can talk to somebody, you can get a financial counselor. There's always a step to get better. And we're
Yep.
lucky that we live in such a country that you do get a second chance or third or fourth or fifth.
Yep. I think that next step you talk about is the important one. That's the direction that step is in. So if it's in the same direction as the let's say the debt, then you're going to be in trouble, right? But if that step is in a different direction, then hey, you're on the right. You have to have a first step when you dig yourself out somewhere.
Exactly. Look, if you're listening to this podcast, I presume you're still alive. And where there's life, there's hope. So you look, it's not over yet. Wherever you are, whatever
Keep
decisions you've
going.
made, you're still alive. So just keep going and find the best consciousness you can find and just keep evolving. I believe that the meaning of life is to elevate your consciousness. Whatever that means to you, I hope that you can have a better brain, better mind, and just keep growing. And I think that's how we move on and evolve.
Yep. Yep. Keep on trucking.
Exactly. Jarad, thank you so much. It's a real pleasure. I'm so sorry you're so cold. We'll end this now because, I don't want to torture you anymore,
I
but the
think that's a
sun's
nice
coming
thought,
out.
maybe. Yeah.
Jarad, thank you so much. To all our listeners, thank you so much for joining us. We're sorry we're just so erratic with our schedule at the moment, but we're just doing what we can, and hopefully we'll bring out a few more of these in a more periodic fashion. Thanks, Jarad.
Thanks, mate. Bye.